As Delaney has so poignantly described, U.S. law has struggled for pretty much all of its history to adequately deal with the types of harms that are disproportionately targeted at women. Domestic violence, rape, sexual harassment, stalking, all of these have long been considered natural or trivial or somehow deserved by the victims. As rapidly evolving technology creates new forms of abuse and amplifies the scope and the impact of existing forms of abuse, our legal responses have fallen even further behind. The passage of the Violence Against Women Act in 1994 and the addition of cyberstalking provisions in 2005 are important steps forward in addressing online harassment. Before 1990, no U.S. state recognized stalking as a crime, and now all 50 states do. While these developments are significant, all of these laws are limited in very important ways. First, these laws do not address the full spectrum of online abuse. Offenses such as revenge porn, the unauthorized distribution of private, sexually explicit photos and videos, doxing, sextortion, all of these have yet to be fully recognized in many jurisdictions. Second, many existing laws are drafted in ways that are completely out of step with modern-day abuse tactics. In particular, intent to harass requirements, coercive conduct requirements, and direct contact requirements are ill-suited to the age of online mobs and commercialized surveillance. Third, all state laws addressing online abuse are limited by Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which immunizes website owners from liability for unlawful content created by users of their services. As the Vice President and Legislative and Tech Policy Director of the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative, I work with both tech industry leaders and legislators to address online privacy and harassment issues. CCRI has collaborated with Facebook, Twitter, Google, and Microsoft on policies to prevent non-consensual pornography, and with more than 24 state legislators on criminal legislation to prohibit this abuse. Since the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative was founded in 2013, the number of states with such laws has risen from 3 to 38. CCRI is very proud to have worked with Congresswoman Spear on the Intimate Privacy Protection Act, which would recognize non-consensual pornography as a federal offense and make it possible to prosecute website owners who traffic in non-consensual pornography. Non-consensual pornography is a particularly devastating and prevalent form of online sexual abuse. As Congresswoman Spear mentioned in her opening remarks, a recent study conducted by CCRI has revealed that 1 in 8 social media adult users has been targeted by non-consensual pornography, and that 1 in 20 adult social media users has admitted to perpetrating non-consensual pornography. It is notable that the study also revealed that 79% of these perpetrators claim that they did not intend to distress or hurt their victims, and that 60% of these perpetrators said that harsh criminal penalties would be the most likely deterrent to them engaging in this abuse. CCRI is also proud to have worked with the Office of Congresswoman Catherine Clark on several legislative proposals to prohibit doxing, sexual extortion, and other threats to online safety. CCRI is hopeful that Congress will act quickly to implement these urgently needed measures to combat the epidemic of online abuse. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your heartbreaking experience with us. And to Mary Ann, who I have to say that there was a time not long ago when we had 2 states that criminalized or penalized non-consensual pornography, and thanks to Mary Ann's dogged work, sort of state for state, legislator by legislator, we now have 38 states and a federal proposal. So
as difficult as this has all been to work on, we've seen a little bit of progress. So what I'm going to do is talk about the First Amendment implications of regulating cyberstalking. So let me just step back for just a quick second to talk about what is often a perfect storm of abuse, and then I'm going to explain why we can regulate it consistently with and honoring the First Amendment. So often cyberstalking is, and Delaney, I'm going to draw from your experience too, it's a kind of perfect storm of actions that terrorize victims. So threatening violence and often impersonating people online and suggesting their interest in sex. The next sort of core component is spreading lies about someone, right? And for you, Delaney, it was the suggestion that you were making it all up, right? And lastly, it's for you the threatened invasion of privacy, and of course invasion of privacy that you experience in the discussions of your experience. But as Marianne talked about, the disclosure of people's intimate images without their consent. And usually it's this sort of perfect storm of all of these things all together. Then the question is, well, what do we do about it? Can law intervene? We do have laws on the books, stalking laws in all 50 states. We have a federal cyberstalking law. We're working, Marianne is working to change the state of affairs for non-consensual pornography. So the question is, how can we do that? And we can. So often when we think of the First Amendment, there is this response that, well, it's ones and zeros. It's speech. End of story, we can't regulate. And that is simply not true. The First Amendment and First Amendment doctrine, it doesn't operate in absolutes. There are certain categories of speech that we can regulate that are considered exempt from the First Amendment because they cause so much harm and they provide so little value. Like they contribute nothing to social, political, and cultural discourse. And so if you think of the First Amendment like a house, right? And that once you walk in the door of the First Amendment, you get the protection of what we would call strict scrutiny. And you have to run through this very difficult test, the crucible of strict scrutiny. Most of the kinds of components of speech that I'm talking about, they don't even get in the door of the First Amendment. They don't enjoy protection, or they enjoy less rigorous protection. So let's go back to the component parts, right? True threats fall outside of that. They just don't have First Amendment salient. So that is credible threats of imminent violence that cause people to change their lives. In the way that, Delaney, you're afraid to go outside, right? You felt terrorized. True threats are not protected speech. They don't even get in the door of the First Amendment. The same is true for the defamation, so reputation harming lies, of private individuals, as well as crime facilitating acts, so extortion, solicitation, calling for people to hurt other people, right? It's a crime that falls outside the door of the First Amendment. And then now let's take privacy invasions, right? The disclosure of someone's intimate images that are shared in confidence, and that confidence is breached, shared without their permission, without their consent, right? And the court has discussed how the disclosure of private communications about purely private matters does not get the full, doesn't enter into the house of the First Amendment. And the reason is because when law regulates and protects the privacy of communications, it's fostering speech, right? If we all thought that we could talk on the phone and that someone was always listening and, okay, well, let's just accept the government for a minute. But if we felt like everything that we were saying in our cell phone conversations, we would not use the cell phone, no. We wouldn't, and the court recognizes it. And so we can regulate the non-consensual disclosure of intimate images about private individuals in those purely private matters, and we can and we should, and we do it in so many states. And so I think I'm going to end it here. We can talk, I think later we're going to have questions about sort of the values of the First Amendment and why so many of those values, whether it's the importance of autonomy, the marketplace of ideas, what we need to know to govern ourselves, right? All of those values are not served by this component parts of speech of cyberstalking.
Before I start, I actually want to just take a second to say to Delaney, you said that this caused you to have a tremendous amount to lose your sense of self-respect, and I'm sure that I speak for everybody here in saying to you that in fact, everybody in this room has extraordinary respect for you. The non-consensual sharing of intimate images, the use of those images to coerce people into behaving in ways that they don't want to behave, these are abhorrent, despicable behaviors. So at Facebook, we have policies. We do not allow this to happen on our platform. In addition, we have supported the Online Safety Modernization Act, the Internet Privacy Protection Act, as well as the state legislation
and across the United States. But it takes more than that. So what can we do at Facebook beyond policies and legislation to thwart these behaviors? Most recently, we launched a tool that prevents the resharing of these images. So when someone reports these images to us, we will hash those images, and if someone tries to reshare those images, they will be blocked from sharing on our platform. We'd like to go even further than that because there's also a threat that comes with those sharing of those images. So working with Danielle, Marianne, and some other organizations, we are trying to develop a program in which we would be able to stop those sharing of those images before that initial share, to remove the ability for someone to coerce somebody or to threaten somebody. Hopefully we'll launch something in the next few months. In addition to that, we also work with partners to develop guides to educate people because as is really clear, there's some cultural shifts that we have to make. Some shifts in norms about what's okay behavior. So we work with the National Network to End Domestic Violence, with CCRI, with the International Bullying Prevention Association to provide guides that not only provide victims with information about how they can continue to use technology and not be victimized and protect themselves and protect their privacy, but also guides that are about getting people to think before they share, getting people to think before they act, to really understand the consequences of their behavior. We have also developed technologies inside of Facebook to actually try to create the types of interactions that would prevent people from behaving this way. So we developed something called social resolution tools. So sometimes there is content that people share that is hard for us to determine from the context around it that it's bullying. And oftentimes people may share a photo that isn't a photo that violates our policy, but is a photo that someone else may not want up there. Maybe they don't like the photo, maybe they don't like the context around the photo. And when that person goes to report that photo to us, in addition to be able to report it for bullying, we also give them the opportunity to reach out to that individual. And in the vast majority of cases, when people do reach out, that individual will take the photo down. So sometimes trying to create technologies that mimic the types of social interactions that we might have, where we might go up to somebody and say, hey, I don't like what you did, really can help protect individuals on the platform. In addition, we found that, for instance, people sometimes find those conversations hard, so we also provide prompts inside those social resolution tools to enable and facilitate those types of conversations. But it also takes more than that. We work with organizations to provide law enforcement training. I think you spoke very specifically about ensuring that we actually enforce these laws. So we work with law enforcement to help them understand how to report to us, how to reach out to us, how to collect the information that they need to pursue an investigation and prosecute. We also work with an organization called Thorn to help provide them with the types of tools that they need to speed up their investigations. And some of these tools can reduce their investigations by up to 60%. So it takes a multi-pronged, multi-stakeholder approach to really get at these important behaviors. And that's what we've been up to at Facebook.
Thank you so much. I'm Brian O'Connor with Futures Without Violence, as was mentioned before. I really appreciate the diversity of the panel, for one. I've certainly learned as well, and I just want to say what's so important and what I'm going to talk about as far as a couple of programs about how we really get out in front of it, right? And so not just how we're able to work directly with young people and how they're able to influence their peers, but also how we're able to engage and mobilize important adults in the lives of young people to also use their influence as well to get out in front of them. And so, like I said, I really appreciate everything that's been said. And Delaney, thank you so much for being here and continuing your advocacy and some of the work that we've done together as well. I also want to thank Representatives Custer, Meehan, Spear, and Joyce for inviting me to talk.